Hello and welcome to the programme. Tonight, the story of a random knife assault on two young women in a family home. 20-year-old Nicola Sweeney died in the vicious attack, while her friend Sinead O'Leary, stabbed more than 20 times, lives with her injuries and the terrible memories of that night in 2002. So serious was the crime that the killer, Peter Whelan, was given consecutive prison sentences. He first served 11 years for the attack on Sinead and only then began his life sentence for murder. Two families, their lives changed forever, now want to know why, just 6 years into his life sentence, he has already been granted escorted day releases from prison, travelling back to Cork, where they all still live. Barry Cummins tells the story that is the stuff of nightmares.
There was a long corridor and I just saw a figure appear and start to walk towards me. Without speaking, he pushed me down onto the floor and immediately just started stamping on my body and my legs and kicking me, and I started screaming, and I screamed for Nicola. And she came running out of the bathroom then, screaming at him to stop, and he just turned and looked at her and never spoke, never changed his expression, and just lifted up his shirt to reveal the two knives.
This is the shocking story of a random, motiveless knife attack on two young women getting ready at home for a night out. One survived, the other died.
We haven't actually looked at any of this footage since Nicola died. Our world was truly perfect there.
So cute. It was senseless. He just goes into our home, turns off all the lighting downstairs, goes upstairs, you know, attacks Sinead for no reason. And poor Nicola pleaded with him, please, please leave my friend alone. He forgot about Sinead and just attacked poor Nicola. I just cannot even speak about it.
This evil person is so evil in his makeup and what he done. He picked our house at random on that night for no particular reason at all, only the evil lust to kill, and he fatally stabbed her through the heart. It was a monstrous act for no reason.
Now, to the horror of the woman he tried to kill and the family of the woman he did kill. The convicted murderer has twice this year come back here to Cork, accompanied by prison officers on escorted day releases. This happening just 6 years into his life sentence.
This killer should not be allowed in the area. I don't want to be looking over my shoulder. Victims, families who've lost loved ones, they shouldn't be petrified.
She came 6 weeks premature. She was born in '81 here in Cork. She was just the most precious gift of all. We lived here in Cork, and then she was 1 year old and we immigrated to the UK. So she spent 15 years in London.
We're in the pub trade, and Nicola went to the local primary school in Highgate where we had our pub. She got very involved in the Irish community that was around there.
Nicola was big sister to Sean and Christopher.
When my brother Chris was born, I was 13 and Nicola was 16. Every summer we used to go back to Kerry, to our nans and cousins in Beaufort and Glenbeigh, which we loved. And ironically, it was Nicola who pushed for the move home to Ireland in '97 because she just loved it so much and the way of life. And my mum and dad felt it was a safer environment.
While we relocated the family, we still held on to the businesses in London, and we would commute over.
Nicola and I met in 5th year in school. Strange enough, both our families moved over in 4th year from England, so we came very close very quickly. We both kind of had our funny English accents. Nicola's was a lot stronger than mine. We all loved Nicola's English accent.
Yesterday was my 14th birthday. I'll introduce you. This is Juliana. Oh, yeah.
Nicola was just always someone who was just fun and light-hearted to be around. She was always someone that you'd ring at the end of the day when you wanted to chat, or, you know, she was a great person to kind of, you know, you were always in a good mood when you rang Nicola.
27th of April 2002. Nicola is at home in Cork with her brother Sean and her friend Sinead. Her parents are in London with Christopher.
I spoke to her that evening. She rang me, Barry, about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. We were all watching Stars in Your Eyes. There was a lady called Rebecca O'Connor from Cove. Nicola rang me all excited. She was hoping for her to win. And I said, I'll tell you what, Nicola, I will ring you back. I'm just getting Christopher ready for bed.
Peter Whelan doesn't know why he murdered 20-year-old student Nicola Sweeney. It could have been anybody, he told Gardaí. Nicola and her friend Sinead O'Leary were upstairs at Nicola's Rochestown Road home in Cork, preparing to go night clubbing, when Whelan, armed with 2 knives, broke into the house.
That night, my last night with my sister, was haunted me forever. I was 17 years old at the time. Friends had persuaded them to join him in town later that evening. So I got onto my friend Connor, who was going to collect me about 10:30. I said my goodbyes. The last words Nicola said to me that evening were just to tell me how nice he looked.
Meanwhile, a neighbour, Peter Whelan, just 19 years old, had been ejected from a pub after trying to attack someone with an ashtray. Whelan had a violent past, once attacking people with a hurley. But the Sweeneys were unaware of any of this. They barely knew him. Whelan went to his house and got 2 knives.
In Garda interviews, he said he had sick thoughts in his head about killing people, and he'd picked the Sweeney house at random. He said he knew something was going to explode inside sometime.
Sinead O'Leary, who survived the attack, said she found every day a struggle.
I was afraid all the time. Even up until a few years ago, I would find it hard to come out of my bedroom in the middle of the night. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It's been a long road of recovery for me mentally, and probably a place that I've only come to in the last few years, where I finally feel kind of safe again and that I can have a life now.
Sinead recently learned the man who tried to murder her has already returned to visit Cork City twice this year, escorted by prison officers on day release.
When I heard that news, my life changed forever again, because once again, I'm not safe because I'm not being protected. He is. His rights are being protected, mine aren't.
This is the first time Sinead has spoken publicly in detail about that night.
The phone call started around 8:30 of other people who were out and wanted us to come out tonight. So we went up to Nicola's room, I think around 9:30 or so, and each had a shower. And I think around 10:30, I was sitting on her bed, curling my hair, and she was in the ensuite doing her makeup and getting ready.
The Sweeney home was protected by a locked electronic gate and high walls. Peter Whelan broke onto the property and approached the side door. He tried the handle and found it was open. As Nicola and Sinead were in Nicola's bedroom upstairs getting ready to go out, they had no idea an intruder had just entered the house. Whelan walked the length of the house towards the stairs, turning off lights as he went. He walked up the stairs and turned left and across the landing towards Nicola's room.
I just saw a figure appear and start to walk towards me. I think I went to stand up because I was quite shocked that, and he pushed me down onto the floor and immediately just started stamping on my body and my legs and kicking me, and I started screaming, and I screamed for Nicola, and she came running out of the bathroom then, and She was just screaming at him to stop, and he just turned and looked at her and never spoke, never changed his expression, and just lifted up his shirt to reveal the 2 knives that were tucked in his belt and to show her what was about to happen. And then he pulled out one of the knives and just started stabbing down on top of me, just repeatedly stabbing. I was screaming for him to stop. She was screaming for him to stop. The whole time he was watching her and watching her reaction and keeping an eye on her. So in that respect, I was able to throw my arms into the blades to protect my chest and to protect my stomach from what was happening. And I think at that point, I'd probably been stabbed about 20 times when the knife broke in my arm, the blade, from the ferocity of how it was coming down on me. And then he turned to Nicola, then with the other knife, he pulled the other knife out and ran towards her. And she ran back into the bathroom and was shutting the door. So I knew then that I had to get up and get us help then, that it had to be now. And I remember I was bleeding a lot at this point, and I slipped down the stairs in my blood, and I just came down and it was complete pitch darkness downstairs. I just was like, okay, just get into the bathroom, just lock yourself into the bathroom. So I got in there. It was hard to get the door locked. My arms were in a pretty bad shape at this point. I had wounds to my stomach and my chest and my back as well. I could hear his footsteps walking past the bathroom door. And then a few, 30 seconds had passed, and he hadn't come back. So I was like, okay, you gotta open the door. So I opened the door to the darkness, and I called out for Nicola, because my assumption at that point was that Nicola was fine. She didn't answer, of course. I ran up the stairs and got back into her room, where I found her lying face down next to the ensuite by her window, and I saw a little bit of blood, so I knew at that point she had been attacked too, but she was moaning when I came into the room, so she was still alive. I found her phone immediately and rang 112, got onto the guards and just sat with Nicola and said, we've been attacked. I'd lost complete use of my right arm then, and my left arm was just starting to go. So Nicola's mom actually rang at that point, and I answered the phone to Josephine.
And our whole world just exploded into a million of pieces when I made that phone call. Sinead answered. She was quite hysterical on the phone, and I thought, somebody broke into the house. Sinead did say, she said Nicola was hurt, but I still didn't realise how serious.
At that point, I believed that Nicola was okay and that help was on its way and we'd be fine. And I eventually hung up from Josephine, and Nicola had stopped moaning then, so she'd been lying on her front. So I turned her over and saw that she had become blue in the face then, and just spoke to her and reassured her that, we'll be fine, everything's fine. And it was a few more minutes then until the guards got there.
One of the first Gardaí on the scene, now retired Detective John Reardon, has clear memories of that night.
I heard a call that a girl was screaming on the phone that she'd been attacked in a house in Rochestown. I got there in minutes. Garda Tim Sweeney from Passage West Station, the uniform car, and Dennis Moynihan, they were at the gate punching in the key. I did hear a girl shouting, "I'm upstairs, please help me." And Tim pulled out his baton to touch the door open, and he's walking down the corridor. And he looked right, and he said, his exact words were, "Jesus Christ, what happened here?" I looked around, and there was a pristine white bathroom, but it was soaked in blood. And from there on, the walls of the house were smeared in blood. So I didn't know what had happened here. And we ran up the stairs, where I met girl who was happened to be Sinead O'Leary, and she collapsed. And I kind of went down with her. The phone rang in Sinead's lap, and she answered it. And she said, "Look, police are here now," handing the phone to me, and this woman is on the phone saying, "Just tell me my daughter's okay, please tell me my daughter is okay." And I said, "She's fine, you were just speaking with her," presuming this was her daughter. And this poor woman said, "No, that's not my daughter is in another room." I have Tim Sweeney whispering in my ear, "John, there's a girl in the other room. It's in the ambulance street and I can't get a pulse." So I had to tell him, quiet, because this poor woman was on the phone, Nicola's mum from London, and I couldn't break the news to her.
When my phone was ringing a few times, it was my dad. He explained how there had been an incident at home, that the guards were there and an ambulance, and to get back straight away. We went out as quickly as we could. I jumped out of the car and I approached the two guards, and I pointed up to the house in Hill and explained that my sister and her friend was up there. I just asked them what had happened. They kind of just straight out told me that someone had died here tonight, which sent me into shock.
Here Sinead was fainting again, and she was soaked in blood. At her face she had horrific wounds, defensive wounds to her arms, to the bone. When she did come around, I asked her for a description of the man who came in, and she said, shaved head, a goatee beard, and grey top. Sergeant Mick Cummins and Jason Lynch arrived, and I gave them the description that she had just given me. And they said there's a group of people outside the front, and there's one matching that description except for the clothes. So at that stage, I went outside. I met with Peter Whelan. And I said, "Just Peter, we need to talk." He made some reference to the fact that I should have used a rock. And then I realised I had the person. I had previous dealings with Peter regarding a burglary pretty close to there at a creche and an assault. I called out for another guard, Chris Cronin, to come to me, and we took some notes of a confession quickly. I asked him for his clothes, but he told me they were at home, inside a wardrobe, behind a jigsaw. So we went there. We secured the clothes. At that stage, I was onto a senior officer, Inspector Dennis O'Shea, who told me that it was confirmed that Nicola Sweeney was dead. So at that stage, I arrested Peter Whelan for murder.
Early afternoon saw the arrival of the army, who, using metal detectors, located what is believed to be the murder weapon. The young woman was the eldest of 3 children. Her parents, who were in England for the weekend, flew home this afternoon after being told the news.
20th of December 2002, in an exceptional and unprecedented move, Mr. Justice Paul Carney imposes consecutive sentences on Peter Whelan after he pleads guilty to the attacks on Nicola and Sinead.
No justification, no excuse and no evidence were offered on Whelan's behalf. Nicola Sweeney's distraught mother Josephine called Whelan an evil monster. Mr. Justice Paul Carney imposed a life sentence for murder and a consecutive 15-year sentence for attempted murder.
The judge clearly seen the crime and the horrendous nature and the horrendous behaviour of this individual before, during and after the crime. And he handed down consecutive sentences, and he determined that this was the fit and proper sentence for the horror of this crime that was committed.
The sentences were upheld in the appeal court, but it ruled the life sentence should start after the sentence for attempted murder. Prisoners who are of good behaviour get remission. Peter Whelan got a quarter off his 15-year sentence for trying to murder Sinead. This means that he is only 6 years into a life sentence, despite being in jail for the last 17 years.
We were made aware in 2013, not through the proper legal channels, through a journalist, that his sentence for the attempted murder of Sinead was going to be reduced by 25%. The life sentence became effective then in July of 2013. So currently he's 6 years into the life sentence handed down for the murder of our daughter, and right now the authorities, the Department of Justice and the prison service and the parole board see it fit to grant this monstrous, evil person external visitations.
Normally, a life sentence prisoner is first considered for parole 7 years into their sentence. However, Primetime has established Peter Whelan has already been granted 4 escorted visits to Cork. The first was in 2017, just 4 years into his life sentence. The latest, last week, was on compassionate grounds due to the death of a close family member. The Sweeney family and Sinead O'Leary have no issue with that particular release, but they do object to the structured releases already given.
We feel we've been treated very, very badly by the prison services and indeed the parole board in making those recommendations. We have written and pleaded with the parole board about the monstrous, evil nature of this individual and to never consider him for anything like this, and to be doing it only 6 years into the life sentence is completely wrong.
Currently, it is the Minister for Justice who has the final say on granting an escorted day release.
Unfortunately, I have to address my disappointment, and that's probably a very mild word, in relation to Minister Flanagan. My wife and I met Minister Flanagan in April of last year, and he gave us reassurances then that on his time as Minister for Justice, that there was no question of he ever getting early release.
Since we started researching this case, there's been a significant development. Peter Whelan now approved for an escorted release every 3 months.
We were told by our local TD about these 3 monthly external visits, which have since been confirmed when I contacted the Irish Prison Services. And our lives are sadly being tormented all over again by the way they are dealing with us.
In a statement to Primetime today, the Minister for Justice acknowledged the unimaginable distress of the Sweeney family and Sinead O'Leary. Charlie Flanagan said, "The system of parole seeks to achieve a balance of rights and needs, of victims, of offenders and of society in general." He said, "It is very important not to conflate very limited day release under escort and supervision with the release of an offender on parole." The Minister pointed out the 2019 Parole Act means a prisoner serving consecutive sentences where one is a life sentence will only be considered for parole after serving 12 years of the life sentence. This new law is not retrospective and so does not apply to Peter Whelan. This is the last video of Nicola on holiday playing with her little brother Christopher.
I just feel that I was robbed. Everyone always tells me, all our friends, all my family, what a wonderful human being she was. If he was released, and I mean this, I couldn't stay in Cork, I couldn't even stay in Ireland, I'd have to leave. I feel so sorry just for my parents, for Sinead, for my brother Sean, for his wife Orla, and their baby Nicola.
I was 17 at the time. I was a young man, but still a boy. You know, it shaped my life. You know, I put a front on for a long time, but obviously at dark moments. I met Orla in 2004. We've been together ever since. We married in 2015, and we had a baby girl, Nicola, who we dedicated after my sister. It's great to have her, and you know, she brings joy to all of us.
The entire family feels strongly that Peter Whelan should never be allowed near Cork.
Our little Nicola will start asking questions, what happened to her auntie Nicola. Sean and I will tell her the best way we can. But I want to be able to say, and he's nowhere near us. You all live here, my family are all from here. Nicola, our little girl, will be going to the school in the area. He should not be allowed, you know, anywhere near here.
Currently, the average time a life sentence prisoner spends in jail is 19 years. Peter Whelan's case is unique. The only convicted murderer whose life sentence did not begin immediately. Tonight, he's here at Wheatfield Prison in Dublin. It's not known how many more years he will spend in prison or how many releases he'll be granted in the meantime, either escorted or otherwise.
I feel like I have the right to have a safe life from him. This is where I live, this is where I'm from, this is where my family is, this is where Nicola's family is. Do you know, I think that our needs should take precedent here, not his. You know, he took a life and tried very hard to take a second life.
Father Charles, the parish priest from St. Joseph Church in Highgate, also officiated at Nicola's funeral mass.
It's upset me so much in the last few days looking at her videos, because I never looked at any of her videos since she passed away. I just felt that I had Nicola back for a short time, and then suddenly I realised she wasn't. She was taken from me in the most horrendous way.
Josephine Sweeney, mother of Nicola, ending that report by Barry Cummins. Miriam.
Well, across the water, Brexit continues.